Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here each and every single week, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Just okay.
I feel a little bit lighter.
You look so much different just from last week. It's I'm sure we'll get into that story.
Yeah.
But before then, what are we talking about this week?
So you having recently seen Star Wars for the second time, and us needing obviously more than 90 minutes. What'd I say? I say
You said Star Wars, which technically you're right, but more
Solo.
specifically, Solo.
Solo. Jason saw Solo for the second time, and we couldn't cover everything in the 90 minutes last week. So this is part 2 of our Solo all-encompassing review of the movie. So,
yes.
And other stuff, of course.
Yes.
Sidebars,
so
bags of carrots.
Yeah, lots of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of Empire stuff. So, yeah, we've got a whole slew of things to talk about. And before we get into any of that, we've got a unique day in Star Wars today, which actually this will be for June 7th, which will be about the time that this episode airs. I looked at everything before June 7th, and it's all garbage. It's all like fucking Hayden Christensen wins Best Villain at the MTV Movie Awards in 2004. I'm like, nobody gives a shit about that. So, but we do have a good day in Star Wars if I can get my stupid phone to work. Okay. On this day, June 7th in 1977, Kenner Products Company announces a deal with 20th Century Fox and the Star Wars Corporation to produce Star Wars toys, games, crafts, and related items. The news is reported the following day in the trades. Mm-hmm. And then they've got a big Kenner logo on the Star Wars app. So, yeah, we've kind of gone into this a little bit when we talked about the toys that made us and all that. But, yeah, it was not long after A New Hope came out that they realized, oh, we can probably really monetize and merchandise the shit out of this movie. Let's do that.
Yeah, and look.
Yes,
it is all around us, and whether we like it or not. Even so far as to have a tissue box with Star Wars on it, which is little stuffed toys, everything Star Wars.
Yeah, and it was a trend-setting time too, because nobody had toys ready at the go when the movie first launched, because there were very few movie tie-ins with toys and all that shit. And this changed the whole fucking game. And after this, nobody would ever make the mistake of not having the shit ready by the time, if not before, the movie fucking launched.
Oh, hell yeah. So, especially Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because it kind of backfired with Phantom Menace.
It did, but I mean, they had the stuff ready. Like, you could buy the Phantom Menace stuff before the movie came out, leading all the way up to even Solo now. Like, all the Solo toys were out a month ago.
You have a lot of it, so.
Yeah, indeed I do. So we're recording this on Sunday evening, and this is the second weekend of Solo being out in theaters. And the box office numbers have already come in for this weekend, and unfortunately, it's not that good. So, just to put it mildly, they had a 65% drop in revenue from week 1 to week 2. And it's always, we mentioned this last week, that first weekend drop is always the most telling sign of whether or not a movie is going to be successful or not. The lower the drop, the better the movie's going to do in the long term. And Solo had a huge drop, over 50%. Not good. It made $30 million over this weekend for the second weekend that a Star Wars movie is out. And that's kind of unheard of these days. So initial thoughts, Dave, about the low turnout?
Well, I know we definitely talked about the the potential. Let's see what happens this weekend. For all the people just kind of waiting it out and trying to see, like, all right, what's it going to? We let the crowd go out, see kind of what the reviews are. Let's go see it this weekend now. It's not the holiday weekend, whatever. And it did. It numbers wise, it did disappoint. So. I don't know. I think we stated it, or at least I stated it last week. I really, the numbers for the revenue and stuff really don't affect me necessarily as a Star Wars fan. From an analysis perspective, I think they are going to draw a lot of conclusions from it. And I think we wanted to talk a little bit more about this at the end, but some of it I think is. Some people I don't think are giving enough credence to the fact that there's been so much out in in this recent time frame. I'm going to sneeze. It's going to be the loudest thing ever too.
Well, while you're doing that,
I apologize.
Okay, while you're doing that, I actually skipped over one bullet point, and I have to issue an apology because we did kind of really talk up Solo last week, and we didn't really talk shit about the Solo haters, but I'm going to issue an apology to anybody who hates Solo and who didn't like Solo. I am very sorry because you're out of your fucking minds. I just got back from watching Solo a second time. I liked it even more the second time around. This was actually a good, fun fucking movie. And to all the people who hate it, I don't know what the fuck you're seeing, honestly. I am seeing a solid Star Wars movie from beginning to end. Somewhere in the last 20 minutes, maybe they could have cut some shit out because that's when it started to drag on. But I mean, otherwise, like, I really, really enjoyed it the second time. I really liked it the first time, don't get me wrong, but I was expecting to pick it apart a little bit more this time and be like, okay, yeah, that's kind of dumb. Oh yeah, this part is stupid. No, I fucking loved it. I'll give you a great example. I bought a big fucking Coke Zero right before it started, drank the whole thing in like 15 minutes.
Like you do.
Like I do. And then I had to go piss like I do. But I didn't want to get up and go pee because it was right before they met Lando, right before and then leading into the Kessel Run and all of that stuff. I didn't want to miss any of that. I enjoyed all that stuff so much. So I didn't. I waited until the Lando introduction was done, and then they went on the Falcon, and then they went to Kessel, and then they did the Kessel Run. I waited for all that shit to be over, and then for them to land on the planet where they refined the shit. And then I got up and left. But
yeah, that's pretty much where I peed the first time.
Yeah, and like from that point on, it gets kind of slow. I wish they could have like sped up the pace a little bit, but otherwise, love the fucking movie, man. Like, and again, liked it more the second time around. Once you know kind of everything that's happening and you can kind of like paying more attention. Big example being the Woody Harrelson thing. It took me a while for it to click that when we saw Woody Harrelson in that battle in the beginning, like that he wasn't an Imperial because they were calling him Captain and, oh, what's your orders, Captain, and all that. And you kind of see these hints as to what's going on, but you don't really know. But now the second time around watching it, you're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Mm. And also when Dryden Voss at the very end, when Han goes up to him with the fake fuel and Dryden Voss is putting on a show because he already knows like what Solo's plan were, or at least he thought he knew what Solo's plan was. You can see the way he's acting towards Solo and the way he's acting towards Kira. It's he knows, and you can see it in his eyes and the way he's acting that he knows.
Right. And they did a good job too because they knew Dryden Voss being he's not a human.
No,
I forget. I don't even know. Do we know what species he is? But
they've hinted at it, but we haven't gotten anything official. No.
The fact that his skin coloring changes when he's angry and stuff like that, like they did a good job of like he's not hiding the fact that like his skin had changed. You know what I mean? Like you could see it in the movie. Like it was just slightly darker. It wasn't as bright red as like it was like fucking kill him. But you could tell like there were some of those little nuances in this movie were very, very good. And yeah. I'm so glad that when you saw it the second time you felt good about it because that's how I felt seeing it the second time. I was like, damn, I really enjoyed this. It's not even about the expectations and the lowered expectations anymore. It's just about going and enjoying the movie, which I really did. And it's a shame. It's a really, really a shame that we get back to the box office that these numbers are what they are. And we could talk about. You got a note here. It's talking about the analysts are projecting it to fall short of the 450 million globally or whatever.
Yeah, it's really disappointing.
So so the next question obviously is why? Why did this happen? Why did what we think, despite the haters out there, let's face it, there is, I think there's still a lot. I think there's a lot more hate for Last Jedi than there is really for Solo.
Oh yeah,
but I definitely I would tend to agree with the statement that some people that went into The Last Jedi were so disappointed that they're looking at Solo. There's not enough time for that wound to heal to go back and really go and see another Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is people being burned by Last Jedi.
And not only seeing it, but seeing it more than once, because that was a big thing. Like, think about when Force Awakens came out, and it was the multiple viewings. It's not just like, oh, here's this big weekend. I mean, shit. When Force Awakens came out, we saw it twice in 24 hours.
Yep, I saw it 4 times total.
Yeah, so we saw the shit out of that movie while it was still in theaters, and then of course you had the video release. Mm-hmm. So, bye. Oh, you are? Okay. Drive safe. Text when you get there, please.
Is that Kathy?
No, it's Kate. She's going out to PA to see one of her girlfriends.
Cool.
So anyway, yeah, I think there is some fallout from Last Jedi. I think there is, as you call it, you want to talk about Star Wars fatigue.
See, that's the thing that I see a lot of people mention in articles and shit, and I don't buy it. I don't buy the Star Wars fatigue thing at all.
Well, I think that I think it's going to affect multiple viewings, for one. And I think it affects well, all right, let's put it to you this. I'll put it to you this way. The negativity that's been out on social media is probably what's creating a lot of this. I can show you on probably hundreds of Star Wars postings, people following whatever, that while they may project positively the movie itself, there's a negative connotation some way or another about the franchise right now.
Oh yeah,
they're talking about, especially when you're talking about, we started it in this podcast where we talk about the numbers, the revenue drop, and all this other stuff. Again, I'll reiterate what I reiterated last week, or iterated last week. The fact of the matter is, Disney had expectations. Articles were out there, rumors were out there that Disney had expectations that this movie was going to fail. Now, obviously, you want this thing to make money, but failure is relative. I think this movie is going to make enough money to pay for itself and potentially pave the way for whatever is going on next. I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy and everyone else at Disney right now is like, getting ready to commit Harry Carey because Solo didn't perform. If they really wanted Solo to perform, they would have released it in fucking December and given it a full year to get away from The Last Jedi. I don't think they were concerned with that. And then we've talked about in a previous podcast. Me personally, I think Solo had to get out of the way for what Disney is coming with as far as the streaming service goes, as far as what's going to come out in their live action stuff and what the next animation series is. So there's a lot more Star Wars content to come out that we're going to find out about this year. And Solo was conceived and written and out of the way. And like, if this does well, great. If it makes us a couple extra bucks, awesome. If not, we're paving the way for something else. And I don't think that the Star Wars fan right now, like the YouTube clip that you had posted, the guy speaks towards I don't know, the guy was fucking, he had more hand motions than me, which is fucking nearly impossible. But I think he wanted to focus on this whole Star Wars fatigue thing and how the characters are portrayed and why people are mad and everything else. I think people are mad just because they can be. I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, yeah, that's a part of the internet in general these days.
Exactly. And you can't pretend that this doesn't play a part in that.
Okay, but let me ask you this, though. If, let's say, Last Jedi had been everything we had hoped it would be and more. Let's say it didn't divide the fan base. It was just this phenomenal movie from fucking start to finish. Do you think Solo would still be performing as poorly as it is right now?
No, it'd be way better.
Yeah.
It would have done way better.
Yeah. So it's not an issue of Star Wars fatigue. I think it's an issue of people not trusting
that's not
the
fatigue.
Quality of the movie that's coming.
The disappointment in The Last Jedi has nothing to do with fatigue. That has everything to do with the fact that they're not committed to what the Star Wars vision is.
Exactly.
I'll buy that. I'll buy the fact that the fan base right now is disappointed with where we are linear in a linear mode with what's going on with the canon. Mm-hmm. Okay. there, I can't argue with that because we ourselves were disappointed with some of the places that what's his nuts Ryan Johnson decided to take The Last Jedi. Okay, yeah. There's a lot of discussion in the future for that, and if Disney had been smart, they would have, and they wanted Solo to do better, then they should. Then I find it hard to believe that all the smart people that have been putting out Star Wars content for so long we wouldn't have gone like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should give this some distance from Last Jedi because Last Jedi, there's still a lot of people that are talking negatively about that. Let's time heal that wound and then release Solo. I think they would have done that, but I don't think Solo was their primary important thing.
Well, and it's a weird spot too because I mean the movie, the final product, as we said already, came out just fine. I really like Solo. As a final product, I don't think it needed to gestate anymore before you birthed it to the world. The problem is like you were saying, that whole thing with The Last Jedi and maybe needing some space. If you're an executive at Disney, do you really want to do that only because half the people that saw The Last Jedi didn't like it? I mean, from their point of view, I can kind of understand them being like, hey, we've got a solid movie in Solo. Let's just get it out there when we said we were going to, instead of continuing to make ourselves look like shit after the fucking director change and all that stuff.
Well, and honestly, those decisions had to be made before Last Jedi even came out. Honestly, they would have had to have moved it from the Memorial Day weekend. They should have. Again, The guy, again, in the YouTube video you posted talks about how there's no way that Deadpool should have affected Star Wars numbers because it's Star Wars. That's complete fucking bullshit.
No, I think he made a great point with that.
No, absolutely not. You know why? Because while you have, we live in a world now. He made his own point, and when he made the point about there's over a 16-year span, you had 3 years between movies, and we didn't have this content. We haven't lived in that era in over a decade. We've had the Clone Wars, we've had Rebels, we've had new comics come out, we've had more canon come out in the past, let's just say conservatively, since the Disney buyout. So what, 5 years? So 5 years of consistent, nonstop Star Wars output. Okay? So you can't say at year 5 that suddenly this is the issue.
Well,
you can't say that.
Think about it this way. Think about 2 years ago from right now. Okay, 2 years ago from just right now, Force Awakens had been out for a while. It was now the #1 movie of all time, blah, blah, blah. Could you imagine saying to somebody at that point, a Star Wars movie that's going to come out 2 years from now, we really need to keep it away from Deadpool 2, when most people didn't even know what a Deadpool 1 was. And now all of a sudden you're moving a Star Wars movie because of that?
Deadpool and the fucking Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that Avengers movie ultimately overtook Force Awakens as being the biggest movie.
It did.
And he even talks about this, how Star Wars is not the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they're trying to do that. Star Wars invented the cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Fucking that statement that's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard somebody say.
Well,
you can't fucking tell me.
I think the point he was making was because we're making all these fucking prequels and we're not moving the story forward like Marvel is doing.
No. What? No.
Yeah.
Look, all right, we're going to make these movies in trilogies. Okay. So you're going to have boom, boom, boom. You're going to have 3 Star Wars movies in a trilogy, right? Then you're going to have this void, and then you're going to make another trilogy, and then you're going to make another trilogy. This is, all right. So if everything's not linear, the apology is that this is where we started from. So we started before, now we're after. Whatever. If fucking Star Wars didn't do this, if Star Wars didn't start it, this Marvel shit that we're seeing now wouldn't exist as it was.
Oh, I don't disagree with you at all.
Nobody would fucking give a shit that all these Iron Man movies and the Black Panther movie and the fucking Captain America and fucking Thor and fucking Bag of Dicks and every other fucking Marvel piece of shit all fucking leads into this big fucking thing where everybody fucking dies. You know what? It doesn't. None of this fucking happens without Star Wars. None of it.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
So that whole fucking concept of like, well, Star Wars can't be Marvel. Star Wars fucking invented this shit. Right? And people just have to fucking realize that we live in a time now where you're going to have more Star Wars content you've ever had before. And guess what? You should be used to it, but at this point, because it's been 5 fucking years. With Clone Wars, with fucking Rebels, with TFA, Last Jedi, Solo, all the shit that we knew was coming out, the fucking novels. You know, we had piles of novels in the past, right? We knew none of that shit was going to be ever made in a fucking movie. We knew it. We knew that all the Jedi stuff, all that, as much as I would have loved to have seen it come in a movie, we knew it wasn't going to fucking happen. So now everything that's happening is canon, and there's a trust level now that what we're seeing here, we can piece all this stuff together. Even this shit in Solo, this is what makes Solo to me so good. You know, where you had the parts of Rogue One. Again, I'm not trashing Rogue One at all. And Rogue One had a direct lead into the next part of the timeline. However, for fucking Solo, you get these little bits and pieces of like, not only just about Solo's backstory, which again, oh, I'm sorry, that fucking idiot in that YouTube video, which is really pissing me off now, actually, the more I think about it. He fucking makes a comment like, well, you know, how did Han get to Corellia? He was born in fucking Corellia, douchebag. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Did you watch the goddamn movie? Do you know anything about fucking Star Wars?
No, again, the point that he's illustrating is that why do we have to keep going backwards and telling stories of how somebody got to a certain point?
Let me ask you this, and we brought this up when we talked about fucking Solo before. Solo is the one character that years ago we said, yes, we want to understand what his backstory is. We want to understand like this, you know, the smuggling and the fucking adventures and shit like that. We want to talk about that. We want to see that. More, because guess what? We don't want to see Obi-Wan because we know Obi-Wan's backstory. If you're talking about the space and time between your prequels to where we are today, the Obi-Wan backstory is played out. So Han Solo was one of those characters where that's probably one of the few backstories you actually give a shit about. So it wasn't a bridge too far to say, okay, let's make a movie about this guy. And to say it is now is fucking ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
The problem is that now they're doing it with every other fucking character.
You don't know that. None of that shit's official. None of it's official.
It's not. And we've even said that on the podcast.
Every fucking smack ass on the internet who thinks their tweet or their fucking comment, like comicbook.com or whoever the fuck you are, you know, you think that, oh, I'm going to post this out there because some asshole said something about a Boba Fett fucking movie. None of it's official. None of it.
Right.
Until I get Kathleen Kennedy fucking sitting on screen or one of these fucking assholes that sits there and it comes across my fucking Star Wars app, I won't believe it for a second. You know why? Because it's all clickbait. And let's bring that full circle back around to where we are now. There's plenty of people that don't want to like Solo because they didn't like Last Jedi. So, and we talked about it before the Solo movie came out. We talked about people are going to bomb it out on Rotten Tomatoes because they were so upset with what Disney is doing to this. You know, this is their social revolution here with what's going on with the Star Wars universe. And a lot of these motherfuckers that are doing this aren't even old enough to have seen any of the fucking original trilogy in the fucking movie theater.
That is true.
So guess what? Suck a giant bag of fucking dicks. I wish I had a bag of carrots here right now, because I would throw it. But in all seriousness, it's what I can't stand. And again, we were lockstep when it comes. We're lockstep with this movie. We're lockstep more or less with Last Jedi, as far as where our disappointments were and everything else. But you know, that's fucking movies. You know, people don't want to call us out on Twitter and says, you know, no, you don't like all things Star Wars. Go fuck yourself. Fuck you. You know what? This is where guess what? You're entitled to your opinion. I don't like it, so go fuck yourself. There's my opinion. Have fun with that. This is the good news about this right now, and as far as it affects Star Wars, is that this is going to vibrate real heavy right now with the fucking box office numbers. Everybody's going to lose their mind, and then people are going to download the shit out of it because you know what? They're missing a good fucking movie. Yeah. If they're not going to the theater and watching, you're missing a good movie. So you're going to fucking download it on video. I'm going to. I saw it fucking twice. I'll probably see it a third time. I really want to. And guess what? I didn't spend a goddamn nickel on your Avengers bullshit. I know there's a lot of people that, you know what? Wait.
I think we need to put the Hulk back in the box for a few minutes.
No, let's just talk about the Avengers stuff for a second, okay? I got chastised by the girl who cuts my hair. Her name's Stasha. All right, she grew up with my sister. She's cut my hair for years. What little I have left of it, and she's a huge Star Wars nerd. Her kids are into Star Wars. Fucking perfect parenting. Great job, Stasha. But she chastised the shit out of me for not fucking being into the Marvel stuff. She's like, "You're missing such good content," and you know what? I probably am. But I'm sick and tired of fucking Marvel bullshit trying to tell me that, like, if you have to like you can't be a fucking nerd, or you can't be into this and not into that. Like, you can't be into Star Wars and not into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
And guess what? I am, and I'm going to do it angrily because I don't fucking care. I do not care about this fucking Avengers movie. Don't give a shit. I really, really don't.
I'm the same.
It could fucking jerk me off and fucking woo! It could be 2.5 hours of fucking just orgasmic pleasure. Guess what? I still don't give a shit. Or maybe I would. I probably, if it got to that point, I probably would.
Yeah, but
I'm human. But
talking just movies and stuff like that, I'm in the same boat with like the Harry Potter shit. Don't give a rat's ass about any of that stuff.
And that's another fan base that's they are animated about their thing, and as they should be. We're this way about Star Wars, and we're passionate about fucking Star Wars. Be passionate about what you fucking love. That's awesome, and I agree with it. But guess what? I don't have to. You don't chastise me on fucking social media because I'm not into what you're into. Fuck you. I don't have to be. I can ignore you, tell you to go. As soon as you tell me, well, you're wrong. Well, no, fucking get it. Have an informed opinion, and before you talk to me, and then go fuck yourself. Anyway.
So getting back to the Solo box office, the real shame of all of this is the fact that it did turn out to be a very entertaining movie, at least from our perspective. I know there are some people out there who don't like it. I'm sorry. I think they're wrong, but I thought it was fucking great. And it's a real shame that it's going to tank like this, because now people are going to be like, oh, see, that movie sucked. It didn't make nearly as much money as all the rest of the Star Wars movies. I'm like, eh.
You know what? It might be the best thing ever, because it might be a cleansing. It might be a cleansing for all those fucking people that just wanted to be into Star Wars because like it was a trendy thing to be into. You know what?
That's true.
All you little trendy people, go dress your kids up. I got you a little bit of the water bottle. You know, all your trendy people now can go fucking put on your Iron Man outfits and go have yourself a good time and go
leave our Star Wars alone.
Yeah. Go enjoy your Marvel Cinematic Universe and let us fucking enjoy Star Wars for what it is, the good movies. And you know what? I'd feel 100% differently. I wouldn't be this much animation, this much, anger towards anything if Solo had sucked. If it had been a bad movie and just did a disservice to the franchise and just I find it really hard to believe that people could say that like this Solo movie hurt the franchise.
Right. Like I don't feel that way at all.
Aside from the box office numbers, which because a Star Wars movie was put out. I'm sorry, what did the Clone Wars movie do in the box office?
I think it ended up making like 80 million total. Total. 70, 80 million.
Total. So Solo's not going to be the box office flop that Clone Wars came out and obviously killed the because it didn't destroy the box office, and it was a Star Wars thing that came out in the theater.
It didn't cost nearly as much to make either. So like that's the whole thing. Like
most we're talking about love to make as much. We're talking about the profit margin now. Like I'm a Disney stockholder, so we can talk about that. We can break that up. But I'm telling you, just like you can't. For all the people that may not be familiar with the Clone Wars movie,
yeah.
When did we talk about that? That was
episode 1.
It was an early episode.
Well, we talked about it a little bit when we ranked the movies in episode 1, but then we actually covered it like 5 episodes later when we had Bob on and we talked about it.
Right. Which, by the way, don't let me forget to the end of this that extreme sidebar. Ask me when we're off air about the connection between my family and Bob Healy.
Oh,
which I
okay.
just found out about today.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. We'll talk about that.
Anyway, yes.
I'm gonna write a note.
Back to the fact that Jason, you are absolutely right. The shame of it is it's a good movie. It's all for whatever's happening out there, whatever negative vibrations that are happening in Star Wars that are keeping people from seeing this movie. It's a shame. But ultimately, it could very well be. It could be that volcano that erupts and fucking just wipes everything else out. Like gets all the negativity out. Like gets all the people that are like
too soon, man. Too soon.
What? Oh,
Didn't
that's right.
They just ordered evacuations this morning.
Fuck, man. That was not intentional. I was trying to think of something not. I apologize to the people in Hawaii that are affected by the volcanic eruption. I'm an asshole.
Oh. So
anyway,
what are we talking about?
Can we get back to the movie so I can get away from this?
It's like, what have I done? So that was all like, by the way, this whole box office discussion was all to our actual main topic today, because we haven't even talked about our week yet. And what are we already 30 minutes in? Yeah, 30 minutes in. And we haven't even talked about our week yet.
I'm not in charge of time.
Yeah, thankfully, I don't have a whole lot to talk about. I've been kind of on a weird social media blackout the last week, pretty much ever since I got back home from my visit last weekend. You know, I don't know. All of a sudden, I had one of these existential moments where I'm just like, I don't want to be on social media right now. I don't want to open it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to deal with it. And I don't know exactly why. There's no like one thing that kind of started this, but it's to the point where I feel like kind of disgusted when I pull up Facebook. And I don't know why. I know over the years, I've wasted a lot of time on social media, like pretty much from the beginning of Facebook. Whenever I would get on the internet, I would get on my computer to do whatever. I'd always make sure, got to bring up Facebook in a window and always have it off here to the side so I can always see what's going on. And I just kind of had this moment where I'm just like, why am I doing this? And I haven't really been on any kind of social media all week, with the exception of a couple of posts I made in our private Facebook group, because I always got to keep up with the podcast because, you know, people expect that from us.
Well, but, it's our private group too, so you kind of know it's controlled. It's a controlled outlet. For stuff. You know, you're not going to get some nonsense.
Yeah, but even after I first got down here to Mississippi, I was really like pushing a bunch of shit on Instagram, like all kinds of exercise stuff I was doing and everything else. And all of a sudden, I just don't want to do any of this. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but it pretty much happened as soon as I got back to Mississippi from home. So I don't know if it has something to do with that. I really have been missing home a lot since that visit. Like I had a feeling it was going to make things worse.
Yeah, it's
getting
tough.
That small taste and then having to come back and knowing I'm still not going to get back for another fucking 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm in a weird spot when it comes to all kinds of shit like that. Like I'm talking to Kristen and the boys every day, but I just don't want to be on social media right now. I don't know why.
I don't blame you. I mean, honestly, you know, greater Star Wars commentary notwithstanding, you know, when it comes to the social media stuff, there's a lot of negativity out there. Yeah, it really is. And sometimes it's just when you're already feeling down, it's better to not capture a lot of that. You know, to be honest with you, I get a notification on my phone when something happens in the Facebook group, and then I'll go and look at that and interact with that. I've been like that for probably over a month, where I haven't really been pushing out anything either. You know, and for me in particular, with, you know, what I go through with my anxiety and PTSD and stuff like that. And I mean, sometimes a lot of this negativity just isn't good for me.
Yeah.
So you see what happens. Fucking start talking about Solo box office numbers, and I lose my fucking mind. And now all of a sudden I'm fucking talking about volcano victims. Really.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, not to make light of it. I feel you, man. It's tough. You know, apologize to the audience out there. You know, this is something that we do for Jason and I. We do it because it's fun for us and something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, and it's something we're passionate about. Very passionate,
obviously. But yeah, I feel you, man. The social media thing, yeah, it ebbs and it flows, man. It just does. I've been there. I've totally been there. I understand. I'm sure all the listeners out there understand it too. Sometimes you just got to walk away, even if it's just for a little while.
Yeah, we already talked about it. I saw Solo a second time. Just saw it. Literally got back from it an hour and a half ago, so it's still fresh in my head. And besides that, earlier in the week, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and again, it's all this negative shit about like Lucasfilm and Solo and all this. And it's not people talking shit about Solo, but it's almost like people celebrating the bad box office, hoping it leads to some sort of retribution against Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy, which, I mean, I personally would like to see her not be in charge anymore, but I'm not going to celebrate a Star Wars movie doing poorly, and I'm not going to call for a boycott or any of that bullshit, because we still love this franchise and we still want it to be successful. So I've been kind of turned off by a lot of that stuff too, so I've been turning that shit off. But that's a little bit different from that video I posted in the Facebook group. But either way, it's
fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I don't care how many fucking views this shit gets.
Yeah.
He had like 572,000 views, by the way.
Yeah, he's a very popular YouTube channel.
Why?
I don't know. Yeah, you got to wonder that about a lot of YouTube channels out there, honestly. Why do people watch this shit?
Fair enough.
Yeah, and we didn't really get a chance to go into it too much last week, but I read the first few Poe Dameron comics and the first few New Vader comics. The New Vader one's interesting because I assumed that was going to take place after the last Vader series that we read, but no, this takes place actually long before that. This takes place, it starts on the heels of Revenge of the Sith. It's the scene with Vader going, no! That's where it starts.
Basically,
with this new series. Yeah, and there was a really cool shot. And then if we talk about this, if we review these comics, then I'll be quick. But it starts off where he like fucking finds out Padme's dead, and he like fucking force throws the Emperor. He force throws Palpatine like against the fucking wall. And, you know, Palpatine's like, calm down. You know, it's all right. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, now, motherfucker, boom. And he fucking shocks Vader. He's like, you ever lay a fucking hand on me again, and I will end you with a snap of my fingers.
The second Vader series, as good as the first Vader series was, the second Vader series is even better. I think. I mean,
and all that
from a story perspective.
Yeah, and all that shit I just talked about happens in like the first 2 pages of this new Vader comic.
That's good. So we'll get there. We'll get there for. I know we got a lot of stuff to cover, you know, over the next few weeks or so, but we'll definitely get there with that Vader comic. The Star Wars one.
I'm ready to ditch the Star Wars, but even the Poe Dameron comic was decent. At least it filled in some gaps for that pre-Force Awakens time. And
the Poe Dameron one, I think, is going to help us get on track towards when we start talking about Episode 9 too. So that gives us some fodder for, you know, all that stuff will be on Marvel Unlimited for the most part, you know, by the time we're leading up to that. So it definitely gives us something to talk about for that, for sure.
Yep. So, and that's really kind of all I've been doing this week. It's been a busy week in class and all that, so not a whole lot of free time.
But I'm right there with you, man. This week fucking snapped by. I mean, I worked like a dog, you know, doing stuff, yard work and getting the pool up and doing all that kind of silly stuff. So really, Star Wars related, I really haven't done much of anything, unfortunately. Aside from listening to the soundtrack, which is fantastic, and we're going to talk about the score, you know, later in the episode. For Solo, yeah. Today, just got back. Like you were seeing a Solo movie. We were my family was celebrating my grandmother's 94th birthday today. She's a World War II veteran. She was a wave. So very, very cool. You know, salute to Nana, and my two. It's funny, like June 2nd, like this week, like these couple days, like so many birthdays. Like my niece Lillian, my niece Kaylee, my nephew Eric, all were born like within the same like 7 days as my grandmother. So a lot of birthdays and stuff to celebrate. So shout outs to all you guys. Happy birthday. Yeah. Kaylee, probably the closest one to being able to be old enough to even maybe listen to this podcast, but you shouldn't be because you're only 12.
You said fuck a lot in the first 20 minutes of this episode. So.
We were short of fuck, so I had to meet our quota. So anyway, I did want to talk about this. So
that was the first thing I noticed, by the way. When we first connected on YouTube Live here, the first thing I noticed was your little baby face going on. So I'm like, whoa, what a stark difference from last week.
Yeah, so So there's a lot of gray in this beard, and I just got my hair cut this week when I got yelled at by the girl cutting my hair about not being into the Marvel shit. So I'm like, I don't. Before I go to my grandmother's, I want to trim my beard. I have one of those beard trimmers. This is battery operated. How you doing? So I went in and I put on a different, size attachment. I'm like, oh, this is what I usually use, and I'm really not thinking about it. I was like, this first thing this morning, I put the thing on, and I was like, oh yeah, I set it to 2. Go to use it, I was like, up my face, and like all of a sudden it was like this short. I'm like,
oh shit,
fuck. Well, looks like we're doing this for the whole thing. So shaved it all off. So it's I didn't like shave it. It's just down to the stubble. But my wife said it made me look skinnier. So I don't know. Maybe I just need to get a bigger beard and then I'll shave it. And I'm like, wow, look how skinny you are.
Yeah. Well, you look younger too. It's weird. Like the beard makes you look older. Like not in a bad way. It doesn't make you look like an old man or anything. Whatever. But it's just like seeing that difference in such a short period of time. It's like, whoa, what happened to Dave?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that happened all this morning. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens by next week. It'll be a little bit more grown out. I'm giving this is it as far as like retirement beard. Like if it grows back in and I kind of like it, then I'll keep it for as long as I want. Otherwise, if it's growing back, I'm like, it's just irritating me. It'll just go, and I'll just shave more regularly. As annoying as that is. And that's it. I think I already talked about last week that I've started college back up. So I had a full week of college class shit going on, which started the next modules today, actually. So right after we're done with the podcast, I'll be back doing schoolwork stuff. So, dude, it's tough to do this shit at our age, man. I'd rather be in your situation where I'm actually, at least I'm in a classroom, like in an isolated environment. So like, that's all I have to focus on.
True. Yeah.
All I want to do is like, oh, I've got stuff to do in the yard. I got stuff to do at lodge. I got, I want to go hiking and fucking weather gets nice. I want to go kayaking, do all this other shit. No, fuck. I got a fucking paper due. God damn it. So anyway, it is what it is.
Yep.
That's it.
All right.
We got time for this movie?
Yeah, why don't we talk some more about Solo? Because this is kind of part 2-ish of our Solo review. It's really just picking up the pieces.
Time out.
Yes.
Did you deliberately wear that fucking tank top again?
This is my podcast shirt. This is what I always wear every time we record. What?
I can't believe you wore it again.
I don't understand.
I can't believe you wore it again. Let me see if did anyone notice in the chat? Let me just look. No,
nobody said anything in the chat. There's no raised lip gloss in there either. So
well, she's shopping, so she's probably not listening. What the fuck, man? We got to get you a new tank top. You need to go to the
I have other tank tops.
Teespring.com/stores/ all things SW pod and go order yourself a new tank top. Everyone.
Yes, I have been meaning to do that,
and you will do it. Anyway,
so
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think I noticed it early on, but then I got myself all worked up, and now I'm getting relatively focused again. I'm like, he's wearing a fucking tank top again. Jesus Christ!
I thought everybody liked this tank top. That's why I wear it every time.
It's a good conversation piece, Jason. You should definitely wear it every time.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're talking about Solo again this week, kind of picking up anything that we missed last week and just giving further thoughts. Like we said, I've seen it a second time now, and we just kind of want to just continue the conversation, I guess. And one of the first things that I made note of this week that we didn't talk about last week that I meant to get to, but we just didn't because of time, was that there is no R2-D2 and C-3PO. And this was the first Star Wars movie without them. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference. I didn't really care. I'm actually kind of glad they didn't shoehorn them in, honestly, because it seems like a lot of their appearances have been forced. It's like, okay, I get it. It's fucking enough of these two already.
The Rogue One appearance, I think, was definitely unnecessary.
Yeah,
it really, really wasn't. You could have even had them in the movie because the timeline was so close and the events that were taking place were so close. You could have had them in the background, but like, oh, hey, look, that's really cool. Didn't need speaking parts. Didn't need any ridiculous dialogue. It's one of the parts where I thought Rogue One just that was fan service that wasn't necessary, honestly. Yeah. So I'm glad that they weren't in this movie, because guess what? They shouldn't have been.
Right. No, I agree. But I was fully expecting them to throw him in there somewhere, and they didn't. So that's good. But Anthony Daniels still slimed his way into an uncredited role, I guess. I guess he was some background character somewhere in the movie. I think maybe on Kessel.
Yeah, I think it wasn't on Kessel.
It was either. I don't know.
You know what? I think it was on Kessel. I think he was one of the, when they were having their revolution. That he was one of the people that got thrown around. I will say this though, when you're talking about fan service and the reach back stuff, we talked about a little bit last week, but definitely they chose, I'm losing the fucking Kirshner. Kirshner chose for reachbacks going into Legends materials and the video games, and if you haven't seen some of the Easter eggs that are out there,
I think you meant Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan. What'd I say?
Kirshner. Yeah, he's dead.
God damn it. I'm my fucking brain, man.
I think we're watching Dave have a stroke live on YouTube. This is actually
and it shaved off the beard. It's like Odin's beard.
Yeah.
That's not the right reference either. No, it was somebody with their hair.
I have no idea.
Anyway,
I'm not spun up on Greek mythology, so
if you weren't into the Percy, those books, it was like the Percy something.
You just can't get anything right now, can you? Okay. Do you need a Diet Coke, Dave? Is that what's going on? Oh, you got some. Okay, I don't know. So, something's off with you today.
Apparently, I don't have enough.
Yeah.
No, I was talking about the reachbacks. Just how many they didn't. They reached back and pulled stuff out of there that serious Star Wars fans were like, "Holy shit! Look at that." We're going to talk about Dryden Voss here in a little bit, where we talk about some of the characters we missed in part one of our breakdown. But I think the Easter eggs and the things that were happening, I think was great. It was something that, for me, just like not having C-3PO or R2-D2 in a movie, when a movie like this comes out and it's part of our Star Wars universe, and it's breaking new ground by not doing things that you would expect, I think that's an important part into getting to better, not necessarily better material, but new material. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? With our hopes and dreams that we lay on the Old Republic stuff that we want them to rehash. There's actually some Old Republic style references that were in this movie.
Yeah.
The deep references that people that were into Knights of the Old Republic and other things, they're going to pick up on. And I think that's great. I think it shows that if Disney's willing to allow this to get out there, that it may not be in development right now. It might not be something we see right away, but it's something in the future that we can see them go back and cover some of these things that we really gets, from Star Wars fandom, talk about the level 2 Star Wars fan. I think Solo was really good for that, for bringing that in there.
It was amazing. And thought was. Yeah, and so much of that too. I didn't even catch the first time around. I had to watch that Star Wars Explained YouTube video. But god damn, they went back for all kinds of shit. They went back to some old Han Solo books, some old Lando books, all Legends material. We might as well talk about Dryden Voss real quick, and then we'll come back to some of these other notes. But in his yacht, in his little penthouse, he has all kinds of old artifacts in there, and one of them is a fucking Sith holocron surrounded by what looks like a bunch of lightsabers, probably Sith lightsabers. So he's a collector. Nice. He's a collector of all kinds of old artifacts, and one of the other things in there was a Jesus Christ. What? Now go ahead. I'll finish my thought later.
What you don't realize is how far away this is from the microphone. I'm surprised it actually picked it up.
Well, now I can't hear anything except for your dogs. So anyway, yeah, and another spot in this whole collection thing he has is an old Mandalorian outfit, which according to like the Solo Encyclopedia, you know, those books they always release with every Star Wars movie, it specifically refers to it as an old Republic era Mandalorian suit of armor. So
Right.
they're starting to reach back even farther into those eras. Like with the Sith stuff, we don't know shit about Sith in the current cinematic universe, but they reach back to old fucking Sith holocrons, some Sith lightsabers. It seems like this is the beginning of that bridge being built to a lot of this older shit.
Yeah, and why not? You're bringing a character like Darth Maul, who we all wondered, like, where the fuck did this Darthamir, you know, well, Darthamir is the planet he's from, but you know, this Darth Maul character, where the fuck did he come from? Where's this Sith? You know, this other Sith come from, and how is this getting introduced? And the fact that they're able to show us some of like, hey, the Sith aren't necessarily dead. It's not just down to this one guy. And absolutely, you look at the Aftermath book when they talk between Aftermath and Bloodline, when they talk about the people that were collecting all these old artifacts and everything.
Yeah, like the old Empire and the old Sith stuff.
Yeah, fucking dogs. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and the Dryden Voss character himself, we didn't really get a chance to talk about him at all. But is he the head of Crimson Dawn, or is he just like one of their top like generals? I'm trying to figure out what the command structure is of this.
So what I think, what people are being led to believe is that Dryden Voss is at the top of the pyramid. Like like if you're looking at it cinematically, it's like, okay, he's in this ship that's designed vertically and he's at the top of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you're led to believe that this is the guy at the top of the pyramid. Now,
very symbolic.
Yeah, exactly. So once you get to the top of the pyramid, and early on in the movie, they mention that I missed it. That Voss reports to somebody,
right?
And what's his nuts? Fucking Woody Harrelson's character, whose name is, help me out,
Beckett.
Thank you. Yeah. Fuck me. Beckett he alludes to the fact that he knows that Voss isn't the head guy.
Right.
You know, so the people in the upper echelons, the people that interact with him directly, I think know that he reports to somebody else. They might not know who that person is directly, or they may not have interacted with that person directly, but I think that the inner circle, Dryden Voss's inner circle, knows that he's not the guy. Like but he's obviously up there. I think for everybody else that's part of that Crimson Dawn, part of that gang, he is the guy. That's just my observation. I mean, they use all kinds of symbolism for that. They use the ring that he uses that Kira takes off of him after he's dead to go and plug into the fucking, you know, the holocron, you know, the holonet to communicate with Darth Maul there at the end. You know, that's kind of the key for him to make that level of communication. You know, but he's wearing that ring. And that same ring is the symbol that Kira wears. And
yeah, she's got branded into her wrist, and she's got on her neck.
So that symbology would lead you to believe that Voss is the guy, and he was the guy who helped Kira out of Corellia, and was part of all that. So, again, I think we're meant to believe that he is the guy, but at the end of the day, the story tells us that he reports to somebody. We just don't know who. And without the benefit of seeing the movie for the first time, I would have never believed that he was going to report to fucking Darth Maul. That was a fucking huge reveal, a very underrated reveal, to be honest. I mean, I don't of all we talked about it before, like, you know, with the cameos and who we expected to be the cameo. I don't think Darth Maul was the guy.
No,
for sure.
He was not anywhere near that list.
Yeah, so they did a good job with that. Anyway, I think for him, from a character standpoint, as we're talking about the character, I like the fact that he's a humanoid and he had those particular characteristics, like it is with his face that like showed anger and things like that, and where he was. I don't know. I just liked how they did that. Because there was a subtlety to it.
Yeah, and
That
ultimately, he wasn't even like the main villain in the movie. There really was no main villain. Like, I guess he was the closest thing, but up until his very last scene, he was kind of working with the people, but at the same time being like, "All right, don't fuck up, or I'll kill you."
yeah, and I think the whole thing with the vibra blades and stuff like that when he's killing the regional governor, I think they're trying to indicate that like this is the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you had this other rival gang when we talk about the Cloud Riders, and they're trying to do this in that initial score on the train, that whole train sequence, where those that what do they call them? The Enfys Nest. Is that it?
Well, Enfys Nest is the chick,
Is the
and
leader?
I guess the gang is what are they fucking the Marauders,
Marauders,
or the something bikers. I don't fucking know.
No, well, it was the whole Cloud Riders thing, but it was
Cloud Riders. That's it.
Yeah, but there was a name that Voss used, like when he went to Becca, is like, you should have known, you should have anticipated that they were going to fucking show up, and you didn't, and so that's why you failed.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's interesting because now that you've said that, it makes me think it is a movie that's without Voss. I think is fairly devoid of a true like anti-hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's Voss fills that role, but you hardly see him. He's only in there for a few scenes.
And really, it's that last scene with him is the only time when he's really at odds with our heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a question for you: do you think he's banging Kira?
Oh, like, he had to have been. He was working at like goddamn, like nobody's business.
Okay,
absolutely.
I felt the same way, but
unless he was like a humanoid with no fucking penis or carrot or whatever you want to fucking call it. She did whatever he said, and I think that applied across the board.
And I say, take off your clothes and you will
that's right.
Lay with me.
That's right. Yep. Here, come here. Sit right here. Yes. Yeah. Let me touch your knee in an intimate way, to show. I think they tried to show that a little bit with how the characters interacted. So
yeah, he had like very subtle dominance over her,
right?
Like the way he talked to her and interacted with her.
In the beginning, it was subtle. At the end, it wasn't as subtle.
No, but she ended up killing his ass. So
yep.
And do you think his blades? I think we briefly touched on this last week. His blades. Do you think those are like made of like some sort of kyber, like the way they ignited, kind of like lightsabers?
I'm going to look it up right now because I thought we've been reading Star Wars shit for like our entire lives, right? Basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's what a vibro blade actually is. It's not just a knife, because you read that in the Star Wars novels and stuff, like they talk about they don't have knives. Like some stories have knives where some people have vibro blades, especially
vibro blades, vibro knives.
You're talking about in the Bane series that you're finishing up the second book for. Those characters, they had those blades. So
like at the Sith Academy, they had the blades that were like they were made up of something that stung like shit when you got hit with it, but it wasn't like lethal.
Right. Yeah, it had some sort of poison on it, if I remember correctly. I found you like a fan. I love Wikipedia. The one thing I'm looking at for canon, it says, I find your lack of sources disturbing.
And while you're looking that up, catching up on the chat, Isaac Sipe thinks that Kira is totally going to bang Darth Maul from here. I know I keep calling him Darth Maul. I know he's not technically Darth anymore. He's just Maul, but he's fucking Darth Maul. So that's how I will always refer to him as.
Which I don't have a problem with. All that equipment's got to be electronic. He was cut at the belly button. Like Obi-Wan sliced him in half. So there down. That's going to be fucking mechanical pounding.
Hey, if it works for L3, then why wouldn't it work for Darth Maul?
Yeah, how does that work?
It works, right? Yeah. Oh, it works.
It's funny. See now. See, it's not real. There's no real clear reference in the canon stuff. Let me look at the Legends tab. Not that it's terribly important.
No. Are you specifically looking up vibroblades, or are you looking up Dryden
Vibra,
Voss's blades?
no, Vibroblades.
I know this is
I could look
fucking
up.
thrilling for the YouTube audience.
And listen, you've already had a fucking Dave explosion in this fucking episode. You can just fucking relax for a second. This is us trying to make sure that we're being good stewards of Star Wars information here.
Yes.
Dryden Voss, who I'm looking up now. There's a picture in Wikipedia. It's like framed out with Kira, over here on the left. I don't know if you're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not seeing shit. So more will be researched on this, but I'm really curious about those blades and whether or not it's using Kyber technology in the red portion or what. Because I mean, he does have the Sith artifacts. He does seem to have some sort of an affinity for the Sith. So maybe that's like partly how he powered these blades. I don't know, but let's move on because we're spending way too much fucking time on this.
Yeah, you're the time guy. You're supposed to be fucking keeping us in line here. What the fuck?
We talked a little bit about Enfys Nest, and this was one of the characters that I wasn't really fond of. I'm never hugely fond of these like super ultra goody fucking characters in this universe where, she's like, oh yes, my mother was a rebel and she did all this. And, we're all about starting a rebellion and stealing all of this stuff from the Empire and blah, 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 blah. Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care about you or your little band of misfits. I did not like her character that much.
What? What are we talking about? Oh, Enfys Nest. Yeah, I agree. I didn't really give a shit. Although like I said to Bronco Fett, I had actually said in our private group, there was a close up when it's later on in the scene. They're on the refinery planet, and it's when Han's coming back up to talk to Enfys Nest, and there's like a pan-in shot where you have like two kids that have like look basically Mando helmets on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were, at least their costumes to look like Mando helmets, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. Like, I don't know why that it would be that way in particular, but
I did notice that shot today when I was watching the movie.
Yeah, I secretly recorded it. But sidebar.
Yes,
I know we don't have time for sidebars, but it's Star Wars related. Sure. So I'm reading. I was reading further down on the Dryden Voss character, and it has this behind the scenes thing here in the Wikipedia, and it says that Dryden Voss was portrayed by Paul Bettany, blah blah blah. The character was originally going to be played by Michael Kenneth Williams as a motion captured alien character resembling a mountain lion. But when Lord and Miller were fired from the project and replaced by Ron Howard, Williams was not available for extended reshoots due to scheduling conflicts with Red Sea Diving Resort. Sounds like a real barn burner.
Yeah.
And the part was recast. So and it goes into something about Jedi Master Quinlan Voss, but there's no connection. So that's interesting. So that Voss character, who I think was actually played very well by Paul Bettany, and what they did with him as an alien and the representation and all that was kind of last minute. How that was written in. Can you imagine?
It worked. It ended up working.
Can you imagine if that was like a mountain lion?
Yeah, that'd be just fucking dumb.
Wow, that to me is like right there. That maybe that was part of the death rattle of Lord and Miller, maybe something like that. It's like, no, that's not who this should be. We're going with it, and they obviously shot scenes with that. I'll be curious to see if some of that shows up in like deleted materials, but
something tells me it won't, because Disney doesn't like to do that kind of shit. But yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what would the Lord and Miller version of this movie have looked like, and would it have been really bad?
I don't think it would have been as good, man. I really, as much as you want to trash talk Kathleen Kennedy and some of the Disney execs, that they probably, I think they made a call because they knew that the movie was going in a direction that we were not going to like.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be having a completely different conversation. about this
I
movie.
agree, especially after hearing that about that character. And it makes sense because, like we said, he's not in much of the movie. So all of that stuff that he's in, they probably could have shot in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
So
that's
that,
that's interesting. I'm glad I just read over that because that actually gives me a really different perspective
yeah.
on the movie. And maybe for the next time we talk about it, we'll dig up some more stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So the second time around, I really paid more attention to the score than I did the first viewing because I never really listened to the score that much in the first viewing of a Star Wars movie, unless it's like got some grandiose thing like a Duel of the Fates that you just cannot not hear when you're watching the movie. But like even with Last Jedi, you talked a lot of really good stuff about the score, and it was really just background noise for me. I didn't really pick up on it until subsequent viewings. But and the same thing happened with Solo. But the second time that I watched it, I was really listening to the score, and man, it was really good. Like it was from start to finish. I heard a lot of that Indiana Jones like stuff that you were talking about last week.
right?
I heard it in there. I'm like, oh, that's got to be what Dave was talking about. And then I still cannot get over that entire Kessel Run sequence. That whole sequence from start to finish, the score that goes along with that, even though most of it is just kind of a rehash of the previous John Williams stuff, it's fucking done just beautifully. And it's just absolutely brilliant. And I got to say, for a non-John Williams score, this is the one, it's got to be the best one that we've seen so far.
I agree. Well, the sample size is small to make that comment, but
yeah.
I think we like I said last week. I think if the tryouts for potential John Williams legacy, if this movie it definitely shows that there's potential out there for somebody to do it really well. There was a lot of reincorporated John Williams things into parts of the score that were appropriate for like this is the Millennium Falcon and this particular thing, and here's some background for this and that. So you could hear it when you're really sitting there and you're really listening to it, especially listening to it without even watching the movie. You're picking up on it. Like, okay, here's this little bit, here's this little bit. But what I like and what I look for in the score, especially for movies like this, is the fact that you can't have a Star Wars movie without the score playing a pivotal role. Like the score is as much the oxygen of a Star Wars movie as any other movie franchise. So for me, and again, this is why I'm not. This isn't the rating episode where we rate our movies, but that's what I really was disappointed in Rogue One. And I still have a tough time with it. Because of the score, and I was really with how it went for this movie. And probably one of the reasons why I came out of there enjoying it. I mean, it just sets a tone.
Yeah,
you can't copy that, or it's very difficult. So anyway.
Yep, I agree, and I think my connection is getting kind of shitty. I don't know how well you can hear me, but you were starting to robot a little bit. I'm sure it's my connection.
No, you're fine right now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, did you say you bought the score? Do you actually have it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I got it through iTunes.
Nice. Yeah, I may have to pick that up and give it a shot because yeah, it sounded really good. We talked about Lando last week, but I just want to emphasize again how well of a job Donald Glover did. Like he did fantastic as Lando. I can't overstate this enough. The guy fucking nailed it from start to finish. Every line of dialogue he had, it was a little bit of Donald Glover, but you could tell it was Lando. Way more than it was Alden Ehrenreich being Han Solo. Fucking Donald Glover nailed Lando, and I would love to see him as Lando in another movie. Alden Ehrenreich, maybe not so much. But even he was starting to grow on me just a little bit. Like he's still never going to be Harrison Ford, but he wasn't annoying. Like I kind of bought it a little bit, but goddamn, Lando was so good.
I agree. Donald Glover did a fantastic job. It's one of those times where you get so lucky casting a role. Let's face it, it would have been very, very. I think you and I agree that this was not the best Han Solo casting.
No.
But it wasn't so bad that we were like, oh God, can't watch movie. No, it wasn't that bad, but it definitely was like you would have liked to have seen a little bit more in the mannerisms, maybe, or maybe the voice be a little bit closer. I mean, who knows? It's one of those characters who's so beloved. It'd be like trying to recast Luke at this point. Like, who are you going to find? Who are you going to find that's going to be able to emulate that out of the primary characters? It's going to be nearly impossible.
Yeah,
they got fucking crazy lucky with having Donald Glover be able to pull off Lando so well. So it's a credit to the casting process. And let's face it, Donald Glover's made it known that he's been a Star Wars fan and a Lando fan. So he kind of like he helped out his own cause, I think, for some of that.
Yeah,
like, come find me and I'll do a Lando movie.
Yeah, and I have not heard a single negative thing from any of the hardcore Star Wars fans about him and his portrayal. Like, I think everybody across the board agrees that he just did a fantastic job of playing that character. So to kind of wrap this all up, I want to talk about the character arc of Han Solo. We talked a lot about this last week, and really this movie is about him, is about Han Solo. And the fact that the character that he really is nothing like the character that he tries to portray. It goes back to that conversation we had last week. Kira telling him, "You're really the good guy." He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm a rebel. I'm a loner, Dottie. I'm a rebel." And and he never ever has been. He was never really a good smuggler. He was never really a good bad guy. He was always a lover. He was, the whole driving force throughout this movie was for this chick, for Kira. And you got to wonder, like, how did this affect him? The whole fallout from the events of this movie affect him later on. And because I think about his relationship with Leia now, I'm like, is he just kind of using Leia as something as like his rebound girl to get over Kira? Because they portrayed this relationship between him and Kira as very strong, at least on Han's side. Kira might not have been into it as much as Han was, but Han was just like head over heels for her.
Right. Well, if the comics are any indication, with him hooking up with this other, what's her name, Sana, to pull off a job and pretend that they're married and stuff like that. I mean, I think that I'm willing to bet that if you try to carry us on through the story arc, that that you'd see that he probably didn't, like, he was like hetero life mates with Chewbacca and wasn't necessarily, might have had a fling here and there, but wasn't really going after some deep relationship until he met Princess Leia, and then was like, oh man, this broad, I'm catching feelings for this broad. And because you pick it up in Empire. If you watch Empire Strikes Back, and this is another time where I tell people, if you're upset with watching Solo and there's too much of romanticism and romantic indications in the movie, why don't you go back and watch fucking Empire Strikes Back?
Oh yeah, but that was from start to finish that he was like trying to get with Leia.
It wasn't even the get with Leia part. It was the when he comes back and he goes into the command center and he's basically says goodbye to the fucking the commanders, like, hey, price on your head, blah 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 blah, and he goes to her and he's kind of hoping it's the same deal. Like, he's like, hey, I know I've got feelings, I've got feelings for you, and she's like giving him the cold shoulder, and he's like, they're running in the hallways like, you could use a good kiss, that type of shit. That's prolific throughout, like you said, it's prolific throughout that movie. So the fact that there's some of that in Solo just shows, yes, absolutely. This isn't a fling interest. This isn't like, I want to bed this and then move on to the next thing. It's just something he obviously has strong feelings for Leia, which ultimately culminates in the carbon freezing chamber where they have the exchange with the "I love you" and "I know." Yeah. Which, did you catch it the second time?
Yes. Yes. The "I hate you." Yeah.
When Lando says "I hate you," and he goes, "I know." I thought that was great. I thought that was great writing.
Oh, and we never talked about Han shooting first. We didn't talk about it last week, and we almost missed it this week. when he was having that final confrontation with fucking Beckett, and mid-sentence, Beckett's like, "You motherfucker, I'm gonna boom," and Han shoots him right in the fucking chest.
Oh, but the irony is here, and this is what's funny is Han shoots first, right? And settling the argument that Han shoots first. Because I know there was some Facebook stuff that was out there before I saw the movie that talks about now you're really going to know why Han shoots first, and I'm like, I got to stop looking at social media. What's interesting is like I think that Beckett was getting ready before he shot Han to tell him basically that like, yeah, hey, by the way, she's working for a Sith Lord. You know what I mean? I think Beckett was getting ready to spill the beans on that. Never got to because he got fucking shot in the chest. So, I felt that that's where they were trying. Like he was getting ready to monologue a little bit into, like, oh, by the way, your girl, why she fucking just rolled out on you is because she works for Sith Lord. Bam. And then, shoots while Han's standing there, mouth agape, boom, he shoots him in the chest. Yeah, that's Beckett's plan, and
Han never let it get to that point.
Never let it, like, no, fuck this, boom.
Yeah,
I'm gonna catch him before he starts monologuing.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking great. Like, I absolutely love that, and they did that shit on purpose.
Fuck yeah, he did. Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't put it past like that being a Lord and Miller edition, because apparently they were having a lot of like tongue-in-cheek nods and a whole bunch of like meta references. And that's one of the reasons why they got fired. But yeah, the whole Han shooting him first, like in the middle of his monologue, was fucking great. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I thought that was good. It's good. If anything, it was good closure to the Beckett character. It's like Beckett's like, all I want to do is play this stupid instrument.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time here. Do you have anything else you want to say about Solo before we close things out?
Bronco Fit brings up a good point in the chat. There's some good stuff in the chat here, by the way, about robo carrots and whatnot.
We've been kind of neglecting the chat this week.
Raised lip gloss got found her way in there. So
good. Did she say something about the shirt?
Yes, she did. Absolutely. And she basically said she's going to stitch carrots together and make Jason a new shirt. I hope I'm not here for that. Bronco Fett brings up here at the end of the chat. He says, is Maul still a Sith at this point?
Well, that's a good question, because you think of the Sith as being a religion more than anything else. You can still wield a lightsaber. You can still use the Force and still use the dark side and not be considered a Sith per se. So yeah, maybe not. Because his journey as a Sith probably ended when his legs separated from his torso.
I disagree for basically the same argument you just made. Like, Sith is a religion. If he's still practicing it, then just because you're not working directly for the Emperor, and there's probably a portion of this that we're missing because we haven't seen it yet in Rebels. Yeah, how Maul's reintroduced. But I think that the guys with his magic legs is still wielding a lightsaber and
magic legs, Lieutenant Dan.
He's obviously, if he's controlling some sort of crime syndicate, that there's some even bigger backstory to that. So I would say that he is still practicing the Sith religion, and is more likely still he is a Sith.
Yeah. To be continued on that one.
Yeah,
we see the rest of Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah, just because we're outside the rule of two, which, oh, by the way, they've already destroyed the rule of two. They've destroyed it in all the canon that we've had in the past year and a half. They've destroyed the rule of two, because between the Inquisitors and all these other Force users, they're not necessarily, maybe they're not full-blown Sith. They haven't reached that level of religion. They're not the bishops of the Sith religion yet, or whatever. We can go into a whole fucking different conversation about that. But the whole rule of two thing, to me, is not necessarily, it's paid lip service.
Yeah, and you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if as soon as Palpatine became Emperor, he's like, fuck this. I was just using the Sith shit to get to where I am right now. And now that I'm here, I don't give a fuck about their previous rules. I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting backstory to get into.
Yeah, the sign of a true Sith Lord. But anything else about Solo before we close this out?
No, I'm exhausted. I spent a lot of energy fucking ranting about
Yes.
Marvel bullshit.
Yeah, it was good though. It was fun. So yeah, coming up next week, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna get back into Rebels? Is that the plan?
Let's do that. Let's do Rebels season 2 part 1 next week.
And very soon, definitely not next week, but maybe the week after, we might do our ordering of the movies. Because we talked about after Solo came out, we were going to reorder the movies. And I've been looking forward to this because I know a lot of shit in my order is going to change this time around.
I think
and what do we have? We've got 11 movies total now to rank, including Clone Wars, the 2 spinoffs, and all the core movies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely time. Definitely time. I think it's well, yeah. So we'll look, listening audience, look for Rebels next week. So we can get back on track with that. Yep. And any other Solo stuff that comes out, obviously we're going to talk about. Yeah. And then maybe episode 61 we'll look at re-ranking the movies and see get some audience feedback on that. Because I agree with you. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank them, how I feel that particular moment, and then go back and we'll look at see how we had them ranked before and see where it changes. Yeah, I'm curious to see how much it's feelings have changed for that. It gives me an excuse to watch some of the older stuff anyway.
True. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, everybody who's been in the chat. Sorry we didn't have a whole lot of interaction this week, but we were just trying to get
the holiday special. I see you, Scott Rasmussen. Fuck the holiday special. I hope I just overmodulated the shit out of that. Fuck.
That was very loud. I think we should put the holiday special in the order now that I think about it. I agree with Scott, but
it's not canon.
Well, that's true. Because
not canon.
And one of the other caveats in our list was the movies that were theatrically released.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, holiday special was not released in theaters. So I'm sorry, Scott. As much as I would like to do it, Scott, it's
I don't even know why, but I knew I was going to look over at the chat and I was going to say whip, stir, whip, and fucking there it was. Yep. You're anything if you're predictable. There, Bronco Fett. Yep. Anyway,
thank you everybody for listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of the social media. We're going to skip all that this week because we're almost out of time. So, Dave, with that, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. What do I click?